There's a famous problem in philosophy, and in particular in the realm of ethics, called the Euthyphro Dilemma. It's named this way because it comes from a dialogue written by Plato called the Euthyphro. In the dialogue, two characters have a conversation about where morality comes from. The two characters are Socrates and Euthyphro. They run into each other on the way to the courthouse. Euthyphro is going to put his father on trial with the accusation of murder. It's some sordid business where the father accidentally killed a laborer. He didn't mean to do it, but he did. So Socrates, surprised that this young man would put his own father on trial, begins to ask questions about what makes something right and wrong. Or, in their language, what makes something pious. Socrates will take Euthyphro through a series of leading questions in which he asks him whether or not things are pious because they are loved by the gods, or things are loved by the gods because they're pious. In modern terms, does something become moral because God wills it, or does God approve of something because it is innately good? This is the Euthyphro dilemma. And a dilemma can be said to have two horns, two equally objectionable options, neither of which seems exactly right. Here are the two options in the Euthyphro dilemma. Either God commands things and they are thus morally good, which is known as divine command theory, or else God perceives things as good and thus commands them. If the first is the case, then goodness is arbitrary. God could command evil, and it would become good by virtue of the fact that God commanded it. In the second case, goodness exists as a moral fact without God, meaning that God actually answers to it or is unnecessary for its existence. The question might seem silly to religious believers, but it is a persistent question in philosophical discussions. In fact, even in a recently published Introduction to Ethics by Russ Schaefer-Landau, he begins in chapter 1 by dismissing most of theology by citing the Euthyphro dilemma. He then goes on to talk about ethical values without reference to theism, despite the fact that most people living in the world today and throughout history have based their ethical beliefs on some sort of religion. Most of the people alive in the world today and throughout history have been religious, and they have in one way or another derived their sense of right and wrong from what they believed that God or the gods wanted. So despite the fact that the Euthyphro dilemma might seem silly or irrelevant, it's still an important question to answer. The good news is there is an easy solution to the problem that absolutely resolves the issue. I'm going to explain it to you by using an original metaphor. A glove maker makes gloves for himself. They fit well. He has 5 fingers, so they are 5-fingered gloves. He has children. They all, unsurprisingly, have 5 fingers. So he makes them gloves as well, which also fit and serve their purpose. We should not be surprised that the children of the glove maker are like the glove maker because they are made by him. And we should not be surprised that the gloves fit because he made them for his children. The Euthyphro dilemma would actually ask, do the gloves fit because he said they should, or do they fit because their fit is right? If he arbitrarily says they should, he could just as well have created 6-fingered gloves and command that they be worn. Does he make the gloves to fit? In which case, the shape of the gloves is determined prior to the glove maker and independently of him. Well, the first answer seems clearly wrong because the children already have 5 fingers. The second one seems right. He makes the gloves to match the reality of the fingers. But notice, the only reason the children have 5 fingers is because they came from the 5-fingered glove maker. The children's nature is determined by their father's nature. So the fit is determined because it arises in correspondence to their nature. This is how it actually works morally. God is love. When God has children, humanity, we are made for love. Love fits. Psychological studies have shown that we are healthiest when we love and are loved. It increases our longevity, and according to the Harvard study of adult development, which has been going on for more than 80 years, we are happiest when we exist in loving relationships. It's in our nature because it's in God's nature. It is God's nature. God then gives moral commands. Intuitively, across cultures and times, certain moral teachings hold mass appeal. There are no cultures where it is taught that torturing children for fun is good. Generally, moral systems have been built around the idea of increasing human happiness, reducing pain, and doing good for one's neighbor. These all sort of fit with the nature of humanity. We were made for love, so moral teachings that encourage love, compassion, kindness, and the like resonate with our natures. If someone feels otherwise, we brand them a sociopath and seek help for them. So the command is in fact secondary to human nature, but human nature derives from God's nature because, Genesis 1:27, humanity is made in the image of God. So the commands actually derive from God's nature. Could God arbitrarily will that torturing children for fun is good? No. That wouldn't jibe with the nature of humanity, which derives from the nature of God, who is love. 1 John 4:8. Could God have created humanity differently so that human nature was different and thus required different commands? Well, God might have been able to create different varieties within creation, but God could not produce offspring that lacked and contradicted his identity. Omnipotence in the Bible does not mean being able to do the logically absurd or the self-contradictory. God cannot create a square triangle, nor can he do evil. If there were a different kind of God, an evil God say, then we would expect God's moral laws also to be evil, like a seven-fingered glove maker who gave birth to seven-fingered children who wore seven-fingered gloves. But then, who cares? That's not the world we live in. So this is an easy, simple, and direct solution to the Euthyphro dilemma. God is love. God creates human beings in his image, so we are made for love. He then gives commands to humanity that we love one another, that we love our enemies, that we respond to the world with love. And those commands resonate with our natures like a glove to hand. So as opposed to presenting a problem which somehow removes God from moral considerations, it in fact shows how all the more necessary it is to consider God's role when we decide what is right and what is wrong. I hope that's helpful. God bless your studies.